Out of curiosity, Abhishek, what were the last 3 jobs that you worked, and what did you like and dislike about them?
Uh, yes, Anshu, you were asking something.
Yes, I was asking what the last 3 jobs you were that you had were, and what you liked and didn't like about them.
Not necessarily job. I've worked on last three projects. As you would say, they were not a very professional corporate environment. They were college level projects, but that have potential to bring a lot of change in the society. The first and the foremost and the most important one that I believe, although my main domain is of an electric car, but what I believe the first and the foremost project that I should be working on is non-invasive methods of blood sugar testing. We plan to use an ultrasonic sensor on your finger that will and an pulse oximeter sensor that will measure the amount of oxygen that relates to the amount of blood, and that measures the width of your finger, and then in the machine learning algorithms of TensorFlow that will generate a blood sugar as a function of your finger width and amount of oxygen in your finger. What I like about this project is it happens to prevent those invasive methods in which you have to prick needles into and take the blood out and then you have to measure your blood sugar. No, that's not the case. And what I dislike about is we have since I'm from an engineering college, we lack a team of professionals that have very great communication skills, and since we lack that team, what I dislike about is that we won't be able to get into the market as we aim to be. There are already giants like Dr. Morgan Omron that rule the Indian medical equipment market. And the second one is electric cars. I like to talk about them a lot. They have a very huge potential to bring a revolution here in India, especially where pollution levels are so high. What I dislike about the project is continuity. I like everything about it. There's only one thing to dislike, and that is the continuity of the project. We are not consistent because we need access to labs and workbenches, and because of this lockdown, we are not able to. That's what I dislike about it.
So believe it or
Plus,
not, I actually have a little bit of a medical background, and I
oh
know
sure,
about arterial blood gas and pulse oximeters and the different types of spectroscopy that can be used
yes,
to
yes,
gauge
yes.
the amount of glucose or glycemic levels inside of the blood. Obviously, arterial blood gas can be a more um, accurate way of being able to get some very, very specific information, but it's also very invasive. So
Yes,
being able to use oximeters and other things like that, especially, you can also judge things like capillary response. And I think a lot of those, those technologies as
there
they're
are.
moving forward.
Yes, yes, yes. If I get into a bit more into technical aspect of it, there are many ways we can do this. Actually, our fingers have a little bit of capacitance in them. If we can pass a very small low frequency alternating signal through it, we can measure the capacitance, and that capacitance directly correlates to the amount of blood sugar. But the thing here is we need to know the amount of blood that actually in the finger. What you can have is you can have high blood sugar but low level of blood amount in your finger that will correspond to low level of blood sugar. That's not what we want. That's why we need oximeters to measure to express blood sugar as a function of oxygen in the blood.
Right, right, and then the resistance to changes in voltage gives you the other information. Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah,
Yes,
we'll have to talk more about
yes,
it
yes,
sometime.
All right, that's great. So finally,
yes, yes,
Gaurav,
sure.
you're able to make it. So just make sure that it's very important that Zoom, Slack, WhatsApp are on your phone, on your PC. We are working in a distributed environment, and it is hard enough to communicate when people are in one location. But it is absolutely essential that we can communicate on a regular basis. Otherwise, it is impossible to work in an environment like this, right? So just make sure you are up to speed.
Yeah, just double check making some connections and stuff. And you will need to turn your microphone on, Gaurav. You have to click the little icon. There you go.
All right. Hi, how are
Okay,
you
so
doing?
extremely sorry. I didn't know why it was not connecting.
That's okay.
I don't know. So
That's
It's
okay.
worked it out and now it's working properly.
Sometimes the Zoom has a problem, so that is why it's always good to have at least two devices, phone and laptop.
Sure.
Use your laptop primarily, because what we do is we share screens, we show some software, how do we work, and it's kind of hard to see it on a smaller screen with a portrait mode, right? So always
More,
try
yeah.
to log in to Zoom meetings using your laptop if you can. And anyways, so let's carry
Sure.
on. Welcome. This is your first day now today, right?
Yeah.
Did you get the
Thank you.
letter? Did you get the offer letter?
No, I checked. I didn't see it yet.
Okay.
Because I was
Manoj,
doing this
I
thing
want
now.
that TetraNoodle account and password actually.
That I sent it to you. It's on WhatsApp. So we'll go over all that. But I just wanted to sort of formally welcome you to the team and start the training process. So that
Thank you for having us.
yeah, so that we can get you started. We can get you thinking about what are the things you'll be doing, and basically we want you to be productive and producing results as soon as possible, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So Anshul, you wanna kick it off, or how do you want to do this?
Yeah, sure. I can talk a little bit about the sales process and why the different steps are important. And then Manuj is going to go into some of the technology that we're using and how you're going to accomplish those goals. One of the most important things about the sales process in general is going to be building rapport. And there's a lot of different reasons that we do this. The reason is that we tend to accept the opinions, ideas, and thoughts of people that we consider to be our equals and that operate inside of a peer group with us. So, this is a very well-known psychological effect, and you can actually affect the brain chemistry of other people as long as they are able to be inclusive of you in their peer group. And you'll be able to observe examples of this behavior all the time. If you have a group of friends that are all standing together that all know one another, and maybe you punch one of them in the stomach or you kick him between the legs or something like that, you'll see a physical reaction in everyone. And that's because when you've established social peer groups, researchers have actually shown that it replicates the signals that are being experienced by someone else in the peer group and you. And that means that the ability to get other people to recognize you as an equal and to include you inside of a social group is one of the most persuasive things that you can do in sales. And it's a process that starts to happen before you ever bring up something that you're selling or you ever try to persuade anyone. And it's one of the reasons that we use the kind of script model that we do, where we're trying to start an organic conversation. We don't just jump into trying to sell them something. We're trying to talk about the different experiences that we have as people that are all operating at that same level, so that they can include you inside of that social group and start thinking of you in that way. And then you let that organic conversation start to move toward an opportunity to be persuasive. It's why a lot of direct marketing can fail, because we come right out with whatever it is that we want to sell or want to present, and we just put it in front of them as if it was going to sell itself. And if we don't trust the opinion of that person, we're probably not even going to look at the thing that they're trying to put in front of us.
So, do you guys have girlfriends?
No.
No.
Okay.
No, I don't have.
Okay. So, have you gone on a date? I mean, any interaction with the females or whatever you like,
Yes.
So,
Yeah, sure.
so the thing is, what Anshar is saying. Let's say you have some interest in a girl or somebody, a romantic interest. If you go up to them and say, okay, let's get married, it's not going to happen, right? So first you need to go on a date, go on dinners, get to know each other, go for drinks, go on a second date, and then slowly you say, okay, we should take this a little bit further now, and so on. So what Anshar is saying is sales process is similar, where we build some rapport with them and show them that we are their equal, and we are worthy of their circle and vice versa. So we need to have reciprocity, reciprocity.
Reciprocity.
I always get stuck with that word.
No, you're fine.
So that's what Anshar is saying. Open the dialogue. It's like going to a girl and saying, "Hi, how are you doing? Can I buy you a drink?" or something like that. So with the prospect is similar, and then you continue build the rapport, and then once you see that things are looking good, then you go for the next step. Otherwise, you move on to the next girl. That's how it works, right?
So once we've got some sense of social relationship with someone, what will happen is we gauge our own value based on that other person. So maybe you go to the prettiest girl in the bar and she looks like a supermodel. If you don't feel that you're on the same level, then that will start to mess up the conversation from the beginning, right? But
Yep.
if that supermodel comes over to you and gives you a compliment or asks you a question about something that you know a lot about, what happens to your self-confidence? What happens to the communication? If you're an expert on swimming pools and she comes up and starts a conversation about swimming pools and you're like, oh God, I know a lot about that. And then you start explaining all of that, immediately your most confident personality starts to come out. And when we start to express ourselves in a very confident way, when we get to focus on the things that make us feel powerful, it makes our defenses go down. And the reason is that we unconsciously give people the ability to make us feel good when we start an exchange of information about something that makes us feel powerful. So when we open up a dialogue with these prospects and we ask them a question about their company, we ask them about their unique challenges, we ask them about their unique approach, we start to show interest in their individualized process and what it means to them and their journey, then they get to talk about themselves. They get to start that conversation feeling a high level of personal power, and assuming that you as a person have enough credibility. And right now we're using Manuj's face essentially. They're looking at all of his connections and all the things that he has to say and seeing him as an equal. And now he's the pretty girl in the bar coming up to them and asking them that question. Tell me something about what you're passionate about. Tell me something about what you know a lot about. That's going to make all of those defenses start to come down. They're going to start getting to express themselves. So when you take a look at these scripts, you'll see that there are spaces that we want to start filling some organic questions in. And what that looks like is taking a look at the about section, getting a couple of factoids, and then asking them to give you more information on it, show interest. And that starts the conversation off with them coming from a place of personal power, discussing something that they're passionate about, and that can lead into an interchange and a conversation where eventually we're going to be able to bring up a good or a service. And that idea of building relationships and creating that harmony and that sense of synchronicity, that is what allows you to move toward the closing statement. So that's the first part of this process. The second part of this process is communication. And we always want to be able to communicate with people in the language that's the most important to them. And since Manoj used the metaphor of relationships, I'm going to talk about that. If you have a wife and it's really important to you that the kitchen is clean, and when you're at home and she's off at work and she's going to come home and you want to do something nice for her, so you clean the kitchen because that's important to you, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the most important thing to her. We're taught at a very young age that we should treat other people the way that we want to be treated. And honestly, that's garbage. It's total garbage. And the reason it is that if you assume that every person that you meet is like you, has all of your needs, has all of the things that are important to you, then that means that you are going to ignore the needs, wants, and desires of most people.
I need 1 minute.
Yeah, sure.
You continue, please.
Okay, sure. So, that first one, treat other people the way that you want to be treated. A lot of people call that the golden rule. I call treating other people the way that they want to be treated, I call that the platinum rule. Okay? And part of that is
How do we show
communication.
them?
Oh, this is perfect.
How
Yeah.
do we show?
So this comes down to communication style. The first way that you do it is learn the way that they communicate and then use that same method to communicate with them. So if they start communicating with you in single sentences and they start using informal language, then you're going to start communicating in single sentences and using informal language. If they start, talking about a lot of facts and figures and backing up ideas as concrete logic, then you're going to start doing the same when you're communicating with them. And
Okay.
we think of this as fairly intuitive, but sometimes we can get lost in the sales process. So if I'm talking with someone and they're using single lines and they're talking about how they feel, and then I send them 2 paragraphs that I'm quoting statistics, are we communicating? Is that going to create a good relationship? Probably not. So this is
Yeah.
the first part of the platinum rule, is communicating with people the way that they want to be communicated with. And that's 2 things. That's pace and focus. So pace is how much information are we transmitting at a time? And focus is, are we talking about facts, figures, specifics, or are we talking about feelings and experiences? And you can always tell what kind of communicator someone is by asking them a few basic questions. And it doesn't have to be something about the sales process. If I ask you about what you did on your last vacation, and you say, oh, I went to Hawaii. It was great. We saw Pearl Harbor, and then we went to Oahu, and then we did a tour of the rainforest and found out that there's an entire biome there that I didn't know about. And then, I didn't realize that milk was a very expensive product because it's very difficult to import there. And the large number of Japanese people, and sometimes it can be very difficult to tell the difference between them and native Hawaiians and the cultural influences. Well, that's a fast-paced person who likes focusing on facts. But if you ask that same question and they're like, oh, we went to Hawaii, it was amazing, the beaches were beautiful, it was so calming, I got to swim with a sea turtle, we made friends, it was one of the most important experiences in my life, and they're sending that in single sentence bursts, well, that person uses feeling language. So being able to identify the communication style of the person that you're talking to and slowly adapt to that style in a little bit of a longer interaction, that's also going to help you build rapport. So when we start these sales scripts, they're going to start with introducing ourselves, talking about, what's going on with us, and then immediately switching to being curious about them, asking them questions about themselves, their process, and then watch the way that they communicate. Watch the way that they respond. A basic expectation of sales is to understand the process of how something is going to go, and then making alterations to that process in order to better connect with the person that you're talking to. And I think that one of the most important things that is the difference between like a novice level salesperson and a person who has experience is that the person who has experience already knows what to say. So instead, they can focus on how to say it. And if you're focused on what to say instead, then you can't focus on how to say it. And so as you're building your skill set and moving forward, those are some of the basic emotional considerations that I want you to think about when we're looking at some of these interactions, when we're going through the script system. Manusha is going to start walking us through some of the different steps that we need in order to be able to make contact and move things along. But at the underlying heart of all of that, the whole purpose of that system is to be able to create an effective system that allows us to have those kinds of interactions on a bigger scale and to be able to follow up with them. And if those interactions don't have those same basic essential qualities to them, then that effort is largely wasted. And making the most of this, making the most of that opportunity, making the most of that dialogue is about being invested in that communication style, building that rapport, and then waiting long enough in that conversation to be able to organically bring up some of the things that you're working on and why it might be of interest to them, and see whether, give them a chance to respond, to ask you a question. And if you see interest, that is when you start presenting. You don't pull a watch out of your back pocket and try to sell it to them after saying hello. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So quick example, Gaurav, when you joined, Abhishek was talking about his passion project, which is his electric car, right?
Yeah.
and
Yes.
he's working on something else. So as soon as Anshar asked him, okay, tell me about what else you're working on. So Abhishek, your face was lit up and you were so excited, and you were going on,
Yes.
and you're talking about what is it that you're doing. Everybody likes to talk about what is important to them, right? So you want to understand what is important to the person. So it's exactly like going after a girl in a club. You want to go up to her and ask her, okay, what do you like, what are your hobbies, what. So that you can find something that you can relate to and say, oh, I like that too. Or you like I don't know, cycling, or I like that too. Where did you go last year? What was the last trip you did? I ride this kind of bike. I go this on these type of trails. Because that connection happens very easily if you have some common interest, or you show some interest in their interest, right? That's what go ahead.
Yeah. So Abhishek, how did it make you feel when you found out that I understand the principles of a pulse oximeter, and that I understand what capacitance and inductance is, that I have more than a good understanding of the difference between alternating sinusoidal waves and singular voltage currents or integrated circuits, or how will it make you feel if I know about the differences in evolving lithium ion technologies, and what kind of new batteries in the evolutionary process. And I could have a 10-minute conversation with you about the first prototypes that Alessandro Volta came up with, pouring vinegar on
Yes.
his different layers.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So how did it make you
That.
feel when we connected in that way? Did it bring you up? Did it take you to a different level?
Yes, it takes you to a different level, but you can't describe that feeling in words, because when you meet somebody new and they have the same interest as you do,
Yeah.
you're lifted up. You feel lighthearted and comfortable talking to them.
So do you feel like your defenses are up when you're in that place? Probably not, right?
No,
Okay, so
I,
probably pretty
I
easy
was
for me
all
to take a
open.
watch out of my pocket and sell it to you then, isn't it?
Yeah,
So same
Okay.
thing,
yes, that
Gaurav.
was.
Like you are into poetry, publishing. So I used to write poems, not anymore. But
Right.
I publish books. So if I start talking to you about, okay, when did you when did you write your first poem? What was it about? Where did you get that inspiration from? Recite one poem for me. Like that's where you'll start to feel that connection, because we are invested in the same thing, right?
So who's your favorite poet?
Right.
Yeah, go ahead, tell us who's it.
My favorite poet would be Charles Bukowski.
Okay, and what's the
And
reason?
yeah.
What's the reason that you like him?
Okay, so his grotesque style. What he writes about is all the what do you call it, the poor people who doesn't have money. They are all drunk, but they still have a dream, and they still sleep at night with a dream. And in the morning, they are all charged up, and they start their day again. So Bukowski's style of poetry is like it gets me. And after that would be Jim Morrison, The Doors.
Oh,
Jim
of
Morrison
course,
is
yeah.
great. Yeah, Jim
So
Morrison will take you away to
yeah,
someplace else.
for me, poetry, I think that the thing I love most about poetry is that it lets us attach
Yeah,
ourselves. Artists use lies to tell the truth, and when you start looking at
true.
poetry, sometimes there's different philosophies that you maybe not necessarily have had an opportunity to get exposed to. One of my favorite that I'd never been
Yeah,
exposed to before was transcendentalism. The idea of using things in nature to be able to cause us to be able to relate to
right.
certain processes in life, like Longfellow, for example. You know, um, the tide rises, the tide falls, the twilight darkens, the
Yeah,
curlew calls. Along the sea sands, damp and brown, the traveler hastens toward the town, and the tide rises, the tide falls. The morning breaks, the steeds in their stalls stamp and neigh as the hostler calls. The day returns, but never more returns the traveler to the shore, and the tide rises, the tide falls. He's talking about the impermanence of human existence, the idea that we would walk along the sands of time, and
beautiful,
that
beautiful.
those
Yeah,
all of those footprints are going to be gone. They're going to be erased effaced over the passage of time, and no matter what mark we've left on the world, no matter what we've done, after a certain number of generations, all of it is gone. And so he's contemplating the existential nihilism of reality, but he's doing it through the lens of a
Right.
man walking at the beach. And I love that about poetry. So one of the
Beautiful.
things that's
Beautiful.
really cool about getting into sales, getting into psychology, is understanding that your ability to get versed on different topics allows you to connect to people that you might never have otherwise been able to. And I love that about sales. And if there's something that I want you to take away from this process as I'm starting to train you, because yes, we're trying to chase down leads, yes, we're trying to push forward something that we think is going to help for virtual sales and stuff like that. That's the smaller scheme. But in that larger scheme, we're helping people realize their dreams, and part of doing that is helping you with your process of self-development, giving you the opportunity to develop passion, to see more. And to that end, one of the things I talked about with Manoj was, what do we want it to look like if you guys start doing really well at what you're doing? Giving you that opportunity to move up to to the title of closer, and being able to have other people underneath of you, being able to get to have some more of those extended interactions, giving you more sales training. And one of the things that Manoj and I was talking about, we were talking about the idea of when we start to book appointments, and we're actually getting some crystallized appointments and getting them properly, not just saying hello and saying, hey, you want to get on a call? Getting someone emotionally invested in the process of what we might be able to do for them, getting some excitement, and then booking a call. I think that we should have some kind of incentive for that for you. And as we start to move a little bit further on in that process of development, and we get through all of the training and stuff like that, I want you to know that that's something that's on the horizon, and that we're in the process of figuring out what that looks like, because we want you to be emotionally invested. We want you to have that opportunity to enjoy some self-development. I've been doing sales training for 20 years. So, you have a lot to learn from me. You have a lot to learn from Manoj. This is going to be a great experience, because you're going to get exposed to a lot of information that you maybe never even thought of before. And it's an opportunity to be part of helping people, which I think is fantastic. So try to get yourself emotionally centered as you're clicking through boxes and trying to understand call scripts and all of that, because there is a greater purpose here. And if you can be passionate about it, your results will be completely different, but also what you get out of it will be completely different. You're about to start interacting with CEOs and executives from Fortune 500 companies, people who have written books, given lectures, gone on TV, interviewed celebrities. These are the people that you're sending scripts to. So you can be of one of two mindsets. You can be, have a window up on your screen and be hammering a couple of links trying to get yourself to the next one. Or you can be mindful and take a look at this person that's in front of you and realize that this person has a 25, 30-year journey through a whole bunch of different industries, and that this is your opportunity to make a connection. And every single time that you do that, you are getting to literally practice your sales skills with some of the most important people in the world. Think about that. Think about that opportunity. Think about that sales environment. Is there really a better way to practice your sales skills? So that's my invitation to you, is to find that passion, to light that fire, because it's going to change the way that you think of your job. And you're going to see it as an opportunity instead, because that's what it is. I can tell you right now, I made a very, very small wage when I first started selling jewelry. And after I was with that company for 3 years, I was promoted 6 times until I was put in charge of a $3 million unit. And then after that, I was asked 3 times to become a district manager. And then after that, I took over the training for over 100 people in my immediate region. The growth that you have from this potential process is all about your ability to capitalize on the resources that you're given. And then it's also to take advantage of the resources here in people. You have the ability to get sales training from me, to start looking at sales books, looking at sales videos, trying to learn more about it so that you get questions of substance to ask me. You're into poetry. If you got to talk to one of the most famous poets, what would you ask him? Knowing what to ask him requires a little bit of a background in poetry. If you got to talk to,
Right.
Elon Musk, and you were going to talk to him about the newest
Yeah.
electric car technology,
Yes.
guess who got to tour the Tesla Gigafactory?
You
Guess who
were?
got to talk? I did, yeah. Guess who got to talk to
Oh,
Tesla
great.
CEOs? about
Wow.
conversational belief change and being able to create emotional rapport. I did. I got to see their entire manufacturing facility. And do you know what I
Great,
did
great, great.
before I went into that building? I did 3 hours of research so that I could understand all of the cutting edge battery technology so that I would have questions of substance when I went on that tour. And when everyone else was looking around and, oh, look how big the building is, I was asking them about the new integration that they're going to be using for home batteries and what that's going to look like for being able to store, you know, photovoltaics and being able to move forward. You know, what kind of challenges are we overcoming with circuit resistivity and heat generation? You know, being able to move past that standard idea and get the most out of something. So yes, you could sit here and Manoj can help you click through a bunch of windows and you can lean your hand in your hand like this and start going through sales scripts, or you can get excited about this. There's a lot to get excited about. I'm excited to be partnered up with Manoj, and I'm excited to be part of this project. And I want you to be excited too. And I want you to know that open communication with me as a sales manager means that if you're experiencing frustrations, that I'm not going to take that as some kind of a personal attack. Manoj and I are going to work with whatever frustrations you're having and try and get you to a place of personal power, not just so that you could do the job effectively, but eventually, if you're successful at it, we're going to put people underneath of you and they're going to be counting on you for good instruction. So do I have both of your commitment for that, for a process?
Yes. Yes.
All
Yeah,
right,
for
well,
sure.
I'll pass it over to Manoj then.
I want to say a few things here as well, right? So, as Anshul touched upon this, sales is not it's not a transactional process. Okay, real sales is more of a relational process. You build relationships. When you want to build relationships, one of the things that you want to put aside is your ego. Okay, you don't want to let your ego come in the way, because Abhishek, you asked a very good question yesterday, which is sometimes when you run into people who are rude, um, you don't want to take it personally, because there may be something else going on in their lives. You know, they may have had a bad day, they may have had a fight with their spouse, or something else might have happened in their life because of which they are reacting that way, right? It is not your problem, it is their problem. Okay, so you leave it with them. So during this sales process, you will learn how to build relationships. It is all about that. Okay, and once you that is why we kept saying, once you learn this process, it will be a powerful tool in it will be a superpower that you possess, because now you can build relationships with anyone, anywhere you
Yes.
go, and that will be of benefit to you. But you really want to make sure relationships, the good relationships have no place for ego, right? So you have your families, you have your friends, your closest friends. If you start showing your ego, or you let whatever your friends say, take it to heart, and not talk to them or whatever, it doesn't create that bond, right? People will be afraid to talk to you. They'll be like, oh, I don't want to upset Gaurav, I don't want to upset Abhishek. So
Yes.
make sure that you address that, right? um, all right, so I will share my screen now. You tell me, is it visible to you? Because I can see both of you are on the phone, so tell me what is visible to you, what is not visible.
Yeah,
Is it visible?
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. So so this is a custom CRM solution that you will be using, and it basically works with many social media platforms, but let's just focus on LinkedIn. Okay, we'll just
Okay.
focus on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So here you see there is a number 2663. Okay, so
Okay.
this number is the number of contacts in the database right now. Okay, so I will show you.
Okay.
I have 20,000 contacts. Okay, but what I have done is,
Okay.
out of these 20,000, I'll show you the process. So what we do is, we go to our contacts, we click on the link, and then it will start to uh, read all the contacts that are already in my network. Yeah, and then we save them into the database. Okay, so you see, I don't know whether this will change. So 2663, if I click next, oh, nothing changed because I just imported the context. But this is how we import the context into the database, right? And then we click on next.
Okay.
So you know how assembly lines work, assembly lines in car manufacturing units or manufacturing plants, right? So there's an assembly
Yes.
line of parts, it's
Yes.
going,
Yes.
and then every employee takes one piece and then puts it into the car, right? So this is the assembly line of
Mm.
contacts. Okay, it's an assembly line of contacts that you will be communicating with on regular basis. Okay, so the very first thing you do is click on
Okay.
next, which will load up this contact which you have to communicate with. Okay, so this is Fritz Dirk
Okay.
Van from Connecticut. He's author, board member, speaker, advisor, um, and chairperson of this company Convene. So now we need to. So this is the first time we are going to message him. There is nothing. We haven't talked to him at all. We just connected with him right now, right? So it
Yeah.
is like going to the party. You meet Fritz, and you're just standing there and you are deciding, okay, what do I say to him, right?
So this guy went to Harvard Business School. Okay. He is a
Yes, I saw
public
that.
speaker. He has an Amazon best-selling book. He is he also did he worked as more than a decade as a Fortune 500 CEO at the Coors Brewing Company. He's also worked in hotels and resorts. He became Nike's president of Europe, Middle East, and Africa. This is the person that you're messaging. You're not making a cold call to someone and asking them if they want to, if they're happy with their washing machine. This is a very important person,
Yeah.
and making a connection with this person and doing it the right way could either make us tons of money and make an amazing business connection, or it could sacrifice it. And that's why when we use these scripts, we want to pay attention to how we're talking to this person, whether or not we're giving them an opportunity to feel powerful and talk about what's important to them. And another important part of that process is making sure that we don't have any previous communication with them, because if we start a narrative with someone and we've already talked to them a little bit at that point, and then we make the mistake of sending them an initial message as if we'd never met them before, that's going to break the emotional connection, right? All right, go on,
Yes.
Manish.
Okay. So did you understand what Anshar said? Like, so there is already a commonality between us because we are linked on LinkedIn, right? So, meaning LinkedIn is like a party. You go to a party, so anybody who's invited to the same party, you already have some common ground there. Like, you're not like coming out
Yes.
from the street and saying, "Hey, how are you doing?" Right? So you are invited to the party. We are connected. So
Yes.
now it's going up to them and shaking their hand and saying, "Okay, starting a conversation," right? So in order for you to help with this process, these are the kind of scripts we will. So these are all the scripted messages that are available to you. Okay, so anything that you click, it will be given to you, right? Now, first thing we want to do is we want to make sure we use his name, because when was the last
Okay.
time you went to somebody and said, hey, hey, how you doing? Like, if that person is an important person, you will say, Mr. Whatever, right? How are you doing? I heard a lot about you, blah blah blah, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So you want to do that. uh, so the way that it works is we use templates. So this is a template. First name is replaced by their actual first name. Company name is replaced by their actual company name. So I don't have to go into detail about how to set up the template. I just want to quickly show you. This is how the scripts are done, which will replace some of the elements on its own automatically. Okay. Then secondly, sometimes what happens
Okay.
is you will see this Sonder Inc. shown up here, but you will go to his profile. He's only a board member at Sonder, but he's a chairperson at Convene, right? So that
Yes.
means you want to say, okay, how things going at Convene, rather than, so you update the company name, you click on the template again. So now it is replaced with Convene, right? Difference at Convene, right? Now we also want to add a little bit more personalized um, personalize a sentence here. So this is where we read about them here, yeah, in their about section. The next thing you will read is their experience section. Okay. And if you cannot find anything related to what you can talk about, then you will look at their company's about section. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So you can say convenience raised 260 million in equity. America's 100 most promising company by Forbes. So this is a good. I think this is a good thing to use as a compliment. Maybe this one, or something from his about. So disruptors feast. So what we can do is disruptors feast, and I can go to Amazon.
He's a passionate traveler, I saw.
Yeah, okay. So if you're into something that is even better, if you where is this? Where is it?
The last line, the very last line, a passionate traveler.
I added a little blurb there, Manoj. That might be something to replace with the "I love to know how you're making a difference" thing, just because he does have so much global economic experience. This would be an example of customizing.
All right.
So maybe replace, the unique challenges in your industry and the "I would love to know how you're making a difference" with that, because he actually has a lot to say. He's a really, really prestigious person. So I think maybe cutting out that little part of the canned script and asking him a question of a little bit more substance might be kind of a cool way to start a connection.
Have you faced any? So what should I say?
I would say, what's your unique perspective?
Unique perspective on the state of global economy and the response by the governments around the world. How about that?
Perfect. So now we have that script, right? But we've modified it because we're talking to a person who has a lot to say. He's a lot more likely to respond to a message like this than he is, "Hey, welcome to my network. How are you?" This is a question of a little bit more substance because of the person that we're talking to. It's funny that Manoj picked him as a first example, but this is totally an example of a person that we want to go into a little bit more substance with. Can you guys see why?
Yeah.
All right, and you'll see it only takes a tiny amount of time investment to modify that message and make it more impactful. This is what applied psychology in sales is all about.
Okay, so imagine if you
It says in his about. Can you please shrink that message window? It says in his yes. Considering the current situation, it says in his about the U.S. India and U.S. China business councils that it has also served on numerous other boards. Okay, so we can also ask him about the ongoing India-China dispute. What's his
no,
perspective on that?
never, don't ever think about talking about India. Okay, you
Okay.
are talking to him on my behalf. So I am in Canada.
Okay.
Okay, when was the last time you thought about the war going on in Syria? Let me repeat the question. When was the last time you thought about the war going on in Syria?
I think about it every day. Actually.
Last night.
Okay, maybe wrong question.
Yes, that's a very because that's a very that's a very
Right.
very flaming question to ask anyone.
Okay, when was the last time you thought about the racial prejudice that is happening in South Africa? Right?
Probably been a while.
Not quite recently.
Okay, so it is
Yeah,
very
not quite recently. Okay,
this
got
is
that.
another sales thing, right? We
Okay.
always think what we are thinking is what other people are thinking. Whatever is important to us is important to other people, and that's what Ansha started with. That is the wrong way to think. We need to think about what is important to other person, not to us.
And we want to make sure that we
Okay.
limit in an interaction or a statement to only one question. Because if a person sends us a message that we don't know and we start asking a bunch of questions, then we can be seen as an inconvenience or a bother, or why am I investing the time in answering this person's question when I don't already know them? We're trying to build rapport, not make them feel interrogated.
Right? Make sense?
Okay.
So the
Yes.
benefit here is that if you met him in a real party, in real life, you will have no context. You have no idea who this person is, what to ask him, how to introduce yourself. But the benefit here is we have his whole history, because he's telling us, he's telling us. We have his company's history, and we have his photo, his headline, where did he go to school. So there's a lot of information available to pick from to figure out what to say to him. Make sense? And obviously it will
Yes.
need you to get into that frame of mind that you are trying to serve other people, you're trying to be nice to other people, you're trying to be friendly to other people, but not in a way that it comes across as a subordinate, but as an equal. Make sense?
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
kind of coming across to him
Yeah.
as like a podcast host and a person who's involved in understanding the changing face of business. So this is a place of power for us, but we want his perspective. You see how that's coming across?
Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect.
So that's the first step. We send the message, and now the next step in the sales process is follow up. Because um, going back to our analogy of finding a girlfriend, nobody's going to say. I mean, we see in the movies first, love at first sight and whatnot. Never happens, right? So even if it happens, you really need to go on dates and then follow up and say, hey, I was supposed to call you, it didn't happen, what happened, let's go talk on go on a date this weekend, whatever. So that is what's called the follow up. Everybody is busy, especially these kind of people, right? So
Yeah.
they may notice it,
Yes.
they may not notice it, they may notice it and say, ah, okay, I need to reply to it, and then they get busy with something else, right? So we need to follow up on regular basis. So what we do
Okay.
is we say what. So this is the state unknown. So it's every contact has a status: unknown,
Okay.
open, contacted, qualified, warm, hot, fan. So qualified means that obviously contacted means we have sent them in a message. Qualified means that they are a potential client. They have the money. They are the kind of people we are looking for, right? So they are qualified. Make sense? The next one
Yeah.
is warm. Warm meaning they have showed us some interest. Got it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hot means, okay, the dates have happened. Now it's time to, really take it to the next level, move in, or whatever. It's the relationship is going in the right direction now, right? We are talking about next steps. We are talking about how many kids are we going to have? Where are we going to go on honeymoon? Those kind of things. Okay.
Right. And what we're going to be doing is, as we're subdividing the sales process, as we move things to, hot, let's say, that's going to get passed on to the closers. And they're going to continue that conversation that you started. And as you get more and more familiar and proficient with this process, eventually that's going to be you. It's going to be you that's being passed those conversations that have already started to bear fruit. And instead of having to just do initial contact, you're going to be carrying on conversations and trying to close them on, doing a video business meeting, or, talking about the kinds of things that we offer and being a lot more persuasive. And that's where a lot of that extra training is going to come in handy. Does that make sense to everyone?
Make
Yeah.
sense? Okay. And then the last step is last status is fan, meaning some people they just become a fan and they're like, okay, I'll follow you wherever you go, right? Okay. So
Yeah.
for now, since the only thing that has happened is we have only sent him a message, we'll set it as contacted, and then we will say when do we want to follow up with this person, right? So generally, I say follow up with them about 1 week, because this is the initial contact. So we want to give them some time. but if there's a continuous conversation going on, maybe you can follow up in 1 day, 1 hour, 10 minutes, whenever it is. Yeah. Okay. So I will set it as contacted, mark it as 1 week, and then just watch what happens in this area, right? I click on 1 week, so that context goes away, and the new contact gets loaded.
Okay.
Okay. So this is what I was calling about, saying to you. This is an assembly line of contacts.
Okay.
Make
Got
sense?
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now let's look at this guy, faculty member at New York Film Academy, film director at Sustainable Media, chief media officer. So he looks like he's in the entertainment industry, video production, blah, 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 blah. Sustainable Media, acting for directors, Film Academy. Okay. Sustainable Media chairman. Wow. Okay. So that's interesting. Let's message him. Well, we already have a message. Okay.
And this is where making sure that we don't have a previous message history is important.
Yeah. So you need to look at the previous conversation and see what is going on there, right?
Yeah.
So I welcomed him, and then he told me that this is what he does. If you manage, you teach, blah blah blah. And then I'm traveling to Europe. Okay, that sounds. So this is where. So this is a very good example for you, right? So this was the welcome message, or this was actually the connection message that I sent him, and in response, he sent me this long message, right? This long message. He said it. He sent it, but we will never send a message like this, okay? Because
Okay.
let's say somebody says, okay, hey Gaurav, how are you doing? And you start saying, you know what, oh, I'm doing fantastic. I was born in Mumbai in 1986, and I went to this school, and and then I got into MBA program. So you start giving me a whole history. I was like, they'll be like, what the heck, man, why did I even ask him this question, right? So you want to be very brief, you want to be very, let them do the talking, right? um, when you ask questions, that is an easy way for them to get to talk. So you can just say, one sentence, and then follow it up with a good question. Okay, tell me a little bit about you, and then they start to open up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he gave me his whole history. Then look, I just said, okay, in fact, I may know good contact. Shall we set up a call, right? So that's it, like 2 lines, right? Because he's already interested. Because now he has shown interest. Now I can be the pretty girl, and I say, okay, if you want to talk, let's talk. Yeah. But if sometimes the roles are reversed. In the previous case, we were trying to get him because he is the pretty girl in that case. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So he said, I'm
Okay.
traveling in Europe, blah blah blah. So I told him this is a deal, a potential deal, and then he came back and said, okay, this is what we can do. That this is the point where he is turning warm now, right? There is a potential
Okay.
business deal that we can do. Yeah. So this is
Yes.
where you will pass it on to. So openers, meaning, so you just like, in cricket you have openers, and you have spin bowlers and whatnot, right? So in sales
Yeah.
as well, you have openers and you have closers, because these are 2 different skill sets. Yeah. So you will be opening it, passing it on to the closer.
Yes.
At this point, I think this is a good point to pass it on to the closer. Yeah.
Right.
So maybe I can just say, that sounds good. What do you suggest the next step? Where shall we start with a call? Is that okay, Kanshar? What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, he's also, one of the things that you offered to him in that social connection was being able to hook him up with a mutual contact. So, should we start with an introduction call or something like that? Because that would be on topic with what you guys were talking about.
Yeah. Okay. So then now this guy is interested. I will mark it as warm, and then I'll follow up with
Okay.
him in 1 day. Okay. Or maybe even
You might have to set the team on it.
oh yeah, that is not working yet. I will.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So then I will follow up with him in 8 hours, because in the morning maybe he'll respond in the morning. I should get back to him right away. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. So 8 hours. So you see how each contact, based on the conversation, based on the context, we are sort of putting them in different buckets, right? Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Does anyone have any questions about this process so far?
I'm good. I understood.
Okay.
Hello. I have a question actually.
Yes, yes.
Uh, we are the openers, right?
Yeah.
So our task is to generate leads, and we'll have other people to convert them.
That's correct for the time being.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that was my question.
Okay.
Eventually you will be able to close them. And also I want to clarify a few things. In this case, yeah, leads, you don't have to get leads. You just want, the leads are already there for you. You just have to start the conversation.
Okay. Okay.
Make sense? Every day there's going to be new leads
Yes.
coming in, and it will be already loaded for you. All you do is come in, click next, and the assembly line will start. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the tentative plan that we have, and Manoj and I are still talking out what this looks like, is once the training process is completely done and we don't have to do any hand holding through this process, from that point forward, we're going to be discussing some kind of, incentive as we start to move things forward and get things to a point where we start getting some of these great deals and these great calls as a result of that. So, the reward for getting completely through training and being completely comfortable and competent, and that's starting to generate really, good quality leads for us, is we're going to, help you share in that success, but we're also going to train you to be able to move up to the next level and then have people underneath of you.
So specifically what Anshar is saying, every call you book with a good process and build a rapport, you will get an extra incentive, monetary incentive, which in most cases for good salespeople, that incentive is multiples of the base salary in most cases. Okay. So the more results you produce, the more money you will make. Got it? Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So should we stop here or should we continue, Anshar?
I think keeping information bite size is important, and making sure that they have an opportunity to process that, make sure that they have any questions, and then we're going to have them actually go through that process themselves to make sure that they're comfortable and they don't have any hiccups in that. So I would say our next training session is going to look like maybe possibly one-on-one with them and walking through them sharing their screen and making sure that they're able to go through that process and they don't have any issues with that.
So for today, what I will suggest is this, Gaurav and Abhishek.
Yeah.
Go. I don't know
Yes.
whether you can look at my contacts. I think you should be able to look at my contacts. Add me as
Yeah, we
your.
can.
Huh? We can, right?
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
So go through some of the contacts. Look at their about section. Look at their employment section, and come up with some drafts of messages. How will you open up conversations with them?
Yeah, that'll get you thinking in
Uh,
that line, which is really good. And then maybe reflect on that and see if you have a couple of questions about that process or ways that you can make that more effective. That way, the next time that we meet up, you can start and open with that and kind of satisfy your curiosity and start getting to a really good point of understanding, and then we'll move on through the next step of this.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And then an obvious expectation of that is for you to be able to be on your computer and to be able to have the call with us and then being able to move through that process in real time. So make sure that you're set up technologically for that. If you need to install Zoom, set up a test call, call a friend or something like that, make sure that you're able to connect, make sure that you're able to go through that whole process without any issues, because we don't want to have any technical disconnect as we start to move further on in the process. If we keep on adding steps and you're not even able to practice those steps in real time in front of you, you're going to get lost.
Sure. Okay.
So this will be a good way. We use Google Drive for all the documents. Google Drive is, if you don't know, like it's a common cloud-based drive where you can store your files and all that. And we use Google Docs to collaborate with the documents. So the team Sanjana will help you out, get set up, and then create a document in the Google Drive in a common folder, and just write the messages. That will get you started in a safety zone, because obviously, as Anshar said, we don't want to send any wrong message, even a single wrong message to all these people, right? They are not like they're not like store managers. If we say send them one message, that we can say sorry, we just make a mistake. We just get one shot at it, right? So go through the contact list and see how will you open that communication, and then we'll review it. We'll give you feedback. Once we see that you're getting the hang of it, then you start sending messages to these people. Yeah.
Right.
And just partner up with Sanjana on how to get into that, and make sure that you're comfortable with the file storage paradigm and all of that. If you have any questions, you can definitely direct them to her.
And we highly encourage you to talk to each other as well. The more ideas you can exchange, don't consider yourself as strangers. You are becoming a part of the team, even though you are in different cities. So exchange ideas, brainstorm, experiment. It's all about taking what we are telling you and adding your own own intellect to that, own angle to it, because the more perspective we can have, the better the process can become. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, any questions?
I have a question, Manoj. When you contacted Fritz, you mentioned about his previous company, Convene. How are things going at Convene? So my question to you is, he has left Convene, then why are you asking him about Convene?
Okay. No, he hasn't left Convene, because no, he is still the chairman.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, to present. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't see that. Okay.
If I had
The board
actually, if he had actually left it, then you would have caught me making a mistake, terrible mistake. So yeah,
Yes.
I mean, these things are very important to learn.
That's why I asked you.
Yeah.
That's why I asked you. I thought that he has worked for Convene.
It's okay. You're just following information on the screen. Sometimes it's hard when things are scrolling around.
Yeah. So see, he's involved in many companies at the same time, right? Citizen M Hotel, keynote speaker, Royal DSM, blah blah blah. But the most important job of chairperson is only on Convene, right?
Okay.
Make sense? So he's an advisor there, non-executive director, the non-executive director, board member, keynote speaker. These are older jobs. So the most current one, which is the chairperson, is the highest level job. He's at Convene, right? Make sense?
Yes.
Make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Any questions? Any other questions?
Actually, we have to practice it.
Yeah, practice. The more you practice,
we need to talk to people. We need to write the draft also.
Yeah. The more you practice, the better you will get. But obviously, you need to get to a point where we can feel good about you sending the messages independently. But before that, let's just practice. So I will say, do as much as you can, but try to go through like, 30, 40, 50 contacts and come up with individual messages for that, and we'll review it together. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So we go to these contacts we draft our messages on Google Docs, and you will see and review it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I will send you the common message that we send, which you can modify for. I mean, you can use it as a template, but you can modify it accordingly, right? So I'll send you an invite into Slack, but I'll send it in WhatsApp.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Great. Anything else?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
No, I'm good.
Was this helpful?
Yeah, sure, very much.
Yes.
So yesterday, Abhishek, you were concerned. How do you open conversation? Are you feeling a little bit better today?
Yes, actually, very better today.
Okay, that's
Okay,
Because
good.
opening the conversation is like, yeah.
okay. All right, that's good. And by the way, you can start to practice this in real life as well. So when you go to an event or whatever. I mean, these days it's not as prevalent, but when you talk to somebody, you can start to practice these skills. Okay, asking questions is a very good way for
Yes.
them to open up, and showing common interest is a very good way to build rapport. Yeah.
And as an eventuality, I'm going to be working with the sales team, so you do have me as a resource for being able to ask questions.
Yes.
If you need feedback on that process, you need some quality, on that, I have no problem helping with that whatsoever.
Great.
Sure.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So get to work. We are excited. Hopefully you're excited, and
Yes.
I think this is going to be a life-changing experience for you.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
All right, great.
Thank you, man.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, of
Thank
course,
you.
guys.
Thank you.